Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Grey's Anatomy Uncut, a podcast where we discuss and analyze episodes of Grey's Anatomy. I'm Emily Hazard.
And I'm Becca Anderson.
And today we're talking about Season 2, Episode 9, Thanks for the Memories. That song was originally sung by Bob Hope, but also Fall Out Boy, if you got rid of some of the E's and O's and stuff. Original air date, November 20th, 2005. Written by Shonda Rhimes, directed by Michael Dinner. Yeah, let that sink in, folks. 20.33 million viewers, up from last week. So I have a little bit of follow-up. I think there was some confusion from last week when I said that Burke and Christina's waiter was the butler from Clue. Obviously, I was kidding. Clue was made in 1985, and that episode was filmed in 2005. There's no way that it was the same guy. So if there was confusion on that, I'm sorry. They just looked really similar, and I'm really sarcastic when I joke sometimes. Do you want to do your opening?
Sure. So this episode is really fun because it's really the first holiday-themed episode we get, and overall I really like the feel of this episode. You really get more of the family vibe of the hospital instead of just kind of the work and friendship vibe that we've had, which is really nice. And plus, you get to meet quite possibly one of my favorite families in this show, in the O'Malleys. And yeah, I just really like this episode. I don't want to get too in depth with it now because I know we're going to talk about it endlessly later, but yeah, just a really good first holiday-themed episode we get.
So, this episode answers the question, how the fuck is Grey's Anatomy still on the air? It's because of this episode. Not this one specifically, but episodes like this. Grey's is still coasting on the nostalgia that they created in these episodes in Season 1, Season 2, and Season 3 specifically. This is the first holiday-themed episode, and it freaking delivers. It's the first extended episode. This episode deals with families in all form. It deals with appreciation and gratitude for the things that you might not think initially. Every character is written in character. Like, every character is just so their character in this episode, and we'll definitely talk about that. Specifically Burke and Meredith. They're just so Burke and Meredith. It's amazing. This is everything that a holiday episode should be, and let's get into it.
All right. Gratitude, appreciation, giving thanks. No matter what words you use, they all mean the same thing. Happy. We're supposed to be happy. Grateful for friends, family. Happy just to be alive, whether we like it or not.
That's so Meredith. I want to be dead right now.
That totally just sums up her mindset of the entire episode.
Until the end, as usual.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just reading this, I just have flash forwards to her and Alex's conversation and what she says.
So, the name of the song that plays during the intro is literally, this is the name, New, parentheses, Yeah, Yeah, by Fanny Pack.
Which, fantastic.
I wonder why that band hasn't just taken off. So, yeah. We open with Meredith trying to sneak out of the house before her warden, Izzy, notices, but Izzy out of freaking nowhere. I am curious on how they cut these scenes together, because, like, did Katherine Heigl have to sneak in while the camera was moving so that when it panned around, she was there?
I don't know, maybe.
I don't know.
I don't know how they shoot things, so.
Meredith is really not in the mood this morning, and Izzy goes, but Thanksgiving, it's like a family, and I was like, oh my gosh, Izzy considers Meredith family. I love that.
Of course she does. They are family.
Intern OTP.
Yeah. So then the doorbell rings, and we get our first introduction to George's father and his two brothers, which really all we get is them being like, O'Malley!
Yeah, I think that, like, the dad says one sentence, but the brothers just say O'Malley.
Yeah. Well, because she's like, what? And I think the dad says, like, oh, we're looking for Georgie. And he's like, what? She's like, oh, you mean George?
Yeah. Which honestly is kind of smart because like George doesn't like it when they call him Georgie, and his other family, the intern family, calls him George, you know? So it's kind of like a cute little thing there. But I'm just noticing this now looking at this screenshot. All these three men are all blonde, and later we find out that the mom is also blonde, so it's almost like another way of showing that George is kind of like the oddball in the family.
Yeah. But
I love clever stuff like that. You know that somebody thought about that. You know that a casting director had to choose of showing that George is kind of like the oddball in the family.
yeah. But
I love clever stuff like that. You know that somebody thought about that. You know that a casting director had to choose these actors. And a lot of it is based on how good of an actor you are, but there's other stuff that goes into that decision too.
either that or they just dyed their hair blonde.
I don't know, because they would have had to dye their eyebrows blonde too. I've thought about this, okay?
You're a great actor, but you have to dye your hair blonde and your eyebrows.
Well, isn't that what they did with the guy who played PETA in The Hunger Games?
Yeah, I think so. I mean,
Because I
they do
think
it a
he
lot.
dyed his eyebrows. Speaking of The Hunger Games, who would be PETA?
Well, because we'd have to do the love triangle thing, because Katniss, Gale, and Peeta.
Or you could do it just based on like PETA's personality.
Well, he's a baker. So I'm
No,
gonna go
not his
Izzy.
profession, his personality.
He likes baking.
I would say George.
Hold on, let me think.
He seems like the super loyal
Yeah.
kind of person. I can see George, and then I can see ooh, how about this? George is PETA. Izzy is Katniss. Alex is Gale.
I could see it.
Who's Ellie? Or Evie? No, what's her name?
Who are you talking about?
Elizabeth Banks. Effie.
Effie,
Effie
yeah.
Trinket. Who's that?
Bailey. Bailey is 100% Haymitch. The cranky mentor.
Yeah, okay, yeah. So then who's
Chief.
which one is
Effie?
Meredith then?
I
think Meredith is the amalgam of all the capital people. All the career tributes that just murder people. I feel like that's Meredith. Effie is Burke.
And may the odds be ever in your favor.
May the odds be ever in your favor. Oh shit. I picked too many names out of this bowl. Now we have more than 24. That is a good show. We should watch that, Christina. Okay.
Anyway. So then we cut over to Derek on the ferry boat, and we get our first extended scene.
Yeah, well, the thing about the extended scenes in this episode is that it's not like they completely took out a whole scene, and that's an extended scene. It's like they edited the original scenes down because the episode was too long. What I expected was that they made this episode the way that they did and then realized that it was too long, and so they kind of had to cleverly edit their way through it, because you'll see that it's just a little bit of dialogue that they cut out.
Yeah, so it's just a really quick little dialogue scene before then it gets right back into the dialogue that's in the normal episode between Addison and Derek. I think they have 2 lines each in this little extended bit.
Yeah, so we're gonna really break down this extended bit. So this is before this thing that you would see on the broadcasted version. Addison goes, "Hey you, I saw you from the window and looked like you could use a wake-up call."
I thought you moved to a hotel closer to the hospital. You still at the inn at Bainbridge? Thank you.
Yeah, because she hands him a coffee. And then Addison goes, yeah, I had a thing for ferry boats.
Always, with the mocking. And then it cuts right back into Addison going, so I was thinking we could have sex tonight. And that's...
But, my God, how many things did we learn from just that? She's in the inn in Bainbridge, so that's where Addison's been living. That finally answers the question. Where the hell has she been living?
Yeah. Definitely not with Derek and his little trash trailer.
I'm sorry. I think you mean shit trailer in the woods.
I like trash trailer. Alliteration.
Whatever. Okay. And then Addison's saying, I have a thing for ferry boats. So how did Addison learn about that?
I don't know. See, my question... So I didn't actually see the extended part, like, before I took these notes. I took notes based on just the normal episode. So I'm just kind of reading this and going off of what I'm reading. Part of me was wondering, does she know? Or what, is that just something she's like, oh yeah, like, I have a thing for ferry boats. And he's just like, what? And it's just supposed to be like,
okay, so in the version, because I have the extended version, she looks at him and kind of like slyly smiles and said, you know, I had a thing for ferry boats.
Okay.
So she definitely knows that she's mocking him. But my question is, one, obviously she doesn't know that ferry boats is code for Meredith, and two, because if she knew that would be like, Addison and Meredith gonna hook up. And two, how the heck did she learn this? Is Derek just constantly saying to like everyone he meets, I have a thing for ferry boats?
He probably said it sometime, and someone in the hospital heard, and then someone was talking to her and was like, oh yeah, you know, your husband likes ferry boats.
Your husband really likes ferry boats. And Addison's like, yeah, I know. It's actually kind of, I'm going to meetings. Addison is wearing this kind of like hat that a 1920s newspaper boy would wear when he's throwing the newspapers. But it
somehow looks really good on her.
Yeah, and I think that it's time to mention that she stopped kind of wearing all black with the red lipstick. Her outfits have kind of toned down a little bit as Derek chose her, and so she's not so much the Grim Reaper anymore.
Not so much Satan's mistress.
Our Dark Lord. Yes. So anyway, let's continue. This is the most awkward thing that I like. Conversation between a married couple. You know, she goes, this will be the first time since, and then Derek says, since Mark, and Addison goes, and Meredith.
Well, I feel like her being like, and Meredith, is her trying to almost take a little bit of the blame off of her, like, you did this too, kind of. And
then, you know, Derek says his line that he always says in this episode, no anesthesia, which, like, if we're thinking about this, that translates to, I literally need to be passed out in order to suffer through sex with my wife. Addison goes, what do you think? And in the TV broadcast version, that's actually the end of the scene, and they do this really clever thing where they cross-cut that scene with the next scene, and Bailey screams gray over the top of the Addison and Derek scene. So she literally asks, what do you think? And the next piece of dialogue we hear is, gray. And I was like, yes, that's so subtly perfect. Because, like, the show literally screams what Derek is thinking about. But in the extended version, Derek goes on to say, remember med school? We spent Thanksgiving studying for exams and eating really bad Chinese food instead of turkey.
Yeah, too busy and too tired to even think about cooking.
We never had to schedule sex. Not once.
Derek, I want to get through this. I do. I want things to be normal again, like it used to be. So will you meet me at noon?
Yeah, okay. I'll see you at noon. But the thing when Addison says, like, I want things to be normal again, or, like, to go back to the way things used to be, the way things used to be sucked. And we don't know that yet, but, like, their marriage was kind of already in shambles even before.
Well, I feel like you get a hint of that because, like, why else would she have gone and slept with Mark? You know, the whole thing, unless there was something wrong in their marriage. So I feel like you kind of already have a hint that things weren't, you know, perfect before. But, yeah, we don't have the full story yet.
Just this little, like, anecdote about Derek and Addison, though, from their college years. I mean, you finally are starting to see that, yeah, they were really in love at one time, you know? And you didn't see it, but the way that Derek looked at her when he said, like, we never had to schedule sex, not once, like, he had the shine in his eyes, you know? So, like, he really, it's just so ambiguous right now. It's so Grey's Anatomy.
So then we cut over to Meredith and Bailey in the hospital.
And Meredith is, like, not a whole lot of not a whole hell of a lot to be thankful for, which Meredith masterfully just changed the conversation to Derek in 2 seconds flat. Bailey is like, can you shut up about
I feel like
Derek?
She does that a
once?
lot in this episode.
Yeah, I know. She's just like, oh, we're having a conversation that's not about me, and so we're going to have to change that. Shauna Wilson is so short. She's like a little hobbit.
I also like how at first, so Bailey gives this whole speech about why she likes Thanksgiving, and at first, it's nice. Like, oh, people are with their families. But then all of a sudden she's like, too much family time triggers depression, repressed childhood rage, bitter disputes over the remote, and way too much alcohol. People get stupid. People get violent. People get hurt. And you're like, oh, is Bailey like the grown-up version of Meredith? Like, the Grim Reaper of news?
And then Meredith is like, why is that good? And Bailey, surgery's great. Lots and lots of surgeries. And Meredith goes, I never thought of that. How is that possible? I just don't understand. Like, I feel like if I was so obsessed with surgeries that I was a surgical intern, I would think that I would know that holidays equals more surgery.
The better question,
But
how
whatever.
did Christina not think about that?
I have no idea. Maybe Meredith just thinks so much about her own life that she just has trouble remembering other things.
Wait, there are other people here?
Wait, other people exist besides Derek and Addison?
And me?
Yeah. So Derek and the chief, and they're in the hospital. And so this whole episode is basically like all the doctors are addicted to the hospital. That's really what the whole episode is about. Like, I think every single doctor goes to the hospital except for Izzy.
Yep.
Yeah. I think, yeah. And so they're talking, like, you're supposed to be at home, so are you. Burke comes around the corner, and he goes, best maze procedure I've ever done. And then he, like, leans in and whispers, he's like, under an hour. And I was like, what an unbelievably giant nerd you are.
And then I just like, I simply like to start my day cutting. Gives me a rush. And you're like, ooh.
You can tell by my voice that I am exhilarated.
And then Derek says the line of all lines, just admit it, you can't function 10 feet away from the hospital, which is ironic because Burke is the only one of them that actually leaves the hospital this episode.
Well, that's the whole point of that
I
line.
know, but I was making note of it.
Okay. I thought you were like, ooh, I'm clever for realizing.
I am clever.
It's like, you're supposed to realize that. Oh. Now we're introduced to an incredibly sexist flaming dumpster monster, Dr. Kent. Ugh,
I love
he's horrible.
him.
He's from Mercy West.
Mostly I just like him because of how Bailey treats him, but anyway.
Because Bailey destroys him at the end.
She destroys him all episode.
But he doesn't realize it until the end.
I know.
I think this is the first mention of Mercy West, and just mentioning other hospitals exist in this world, even though you don't show them, makes it more authentic and makes it a better show.
Well, I like it because after this moment, they actually do mention Mercy West like a bunch of other times and stuff.
Yeah, I know, but I almost like how they don't show it much.
Mm-hmm.
So he's only here for one day. He doesn't need his ass kissed, which, hard pass anyway. And he doesn't like mistakes.
Which he just made one by saying that. Bailey, the way she says, I don't make mistakes. And she's just like, I'm going to cut you open.
Meredith is like, give me the heart. The precious heart. Oh my god, Meredith is totally Gollum.
My precious.
Mr. Frodo. No, but who... Oh my god. You know who Gimli is?
Who?
Bailey.
Just because.
Can you imagine Bailey wielding an axe?
Oh my god.
Can the chief be Legolas?
No.
Well, who's Bailey's, like, BFF that she does everything with?
That's true.
Oh my god, you know who Gimli is? You know who Gimli really is? Meredith.
I'm honestly surprised that you remember his name.
Yeah, that's true. I'm still gonna think about this. Who's Kate from Lost?
Well, she wasn't in the book.
Of course he wasn't. So Dr. Kent is like, I'm looking for a guy they call the Nazi. Do you know him? And Bailey's like, the Nazi. He gets great word of mouth. Stellar rep, balls the size of Texas. And Bailey's like, that big? Sounds like an impressively talented man, this Nazi. Never heard of him. I'll be sure to keep an eye out. Oh god, what a sexist pig.
I think the best part of this whole scene is Meredith's face, because she's just kind of like, right as soon as like Bailey's like, oh, like the Nazi, Meredith kind of like glances at her like Meredith's face throughout this whole scene is like, Bailey, what are you gonna do to this man? Like,
it's more like, Dr. Bailey, you need me to take care of this man, because he will never be found if I take care of him.
I'll destroy him for you.
I wanted Meredith to like reach out and like pull his spine out through his mouth. Just be like, say it again.
Ew. How the hell would you do that?
If anyone could do it, it would be Meredith.
Ew.
So what a great storyline for Bailey. It's so simple. It is so simple, yet is so good. Like, you don't need an overly dramatic, stupid storyline. This is everyday life, and it can be exceedingly interesting. And that's
hilarious.
That's it. Yeah, exactly.
That's awesome. Okay, so then we go cut back to Meredith's house, where Izzy is pretty much like, wait, why isn't anyone helping me with dinner? And you're like, really? Did you think any of them were going to help you?
Izzy. Exactly. Yeah, so George is leaving with his family to go hunt and shoot a helpless, slow-moving turkey. And whatever. I mean, basically he'll be back for dinner time, and Izzy's like, how am I going to cook this all by myself? And it's like,
my favorite is she's like, who's going to help me? And George just, he's like, who's going to help me?
Yeah, because throughout this scene, I was a little confused at how TR was playing it, because it almost seemed like he was into it, like when he was just like, isn't that great? And then like whatever, and then you don't really realize it until he goes, who's gonna help me? And then you're like, oh, he doesn't actually like this at all. No. And it's really funny.
Yeah.
So now we meet the biggest patient of the episode, Holden. And Olivia's back for this one scene, which is dedication. I like how they just bring her, like they bring the actor back for one scene.
Isn't she in, like, future episodes, too?
Yeah. But I'm just saying, like, this episode, she's in one scene, so... unless I'm confused, but I'm pretty sure she is in only one scene.
Oh, you're talking, like, just for this episode.
Yeah. Do you think that Olivia knows by now that George is referring to Meredith when he broke up with her? / do you think Olivia hates Meredith?
I don't think so. I mean, at least if she does, you can't really tell.
Yeah. I mean, it's insinuated in episode... Oh, God, what episode is that? Like 13 or something like that? That she does know that it was Meredith.
Mm-hmm. But you really can't tell in this scene.
So this guy, Holden, Mayfield Nursing Home, he was brought in, which just the mention of a nursing home made me think Meredith and Ellis.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many parallels. Also, Mayfield is an actual real nursing home in Illinois, so that's cool.
Where's the closest hospital? Washington? Okay.
So he fell into this, like, vegetative, like, coma fugue state 16 years ago, which would have been 1989.
Oh my god.
No, I'm just saying, like, that, like, it's 2005.
I thought you were going to make it Taylor content.
Well, I was about to. But, I mean, that's the year that the Queen was born, Tay-Tay. And that would have been 1989. Think about all the, like, advancements that happened from 1989 to 2005. Like, he probably went to sleep when, like, exercise tapes were still huge and, like, all the rage.
What?
Like, Farrah Fawcett hair and all that.
Oh my god. So basically he fell off his bed while being turned by the orderlies, which, like, how did the orderlies just, like, throw someone off their bed?
Yeah, how does that even happen?
He has to be turned over. Oops.
Yeah. Meredith is like, this is taking too long. Just, like, lifts up the whole mattress.
Just, like, chucks him out of the bed. Like, okay.
Ugh. Now we have to send him to Washington. Anyway. Bailey leaves the scene. Anybody asks, I'm looking for the Nazi. And then Meredith starts talking to Holden, and it's actually this really sweet moment with Meredith being introspective.
Maternal? Oh, internal.
No, introspective.
Okay. It's just me and you. I'd give anything for your kind of serenity. Great, now I'm jealous of vegetables. You just look so peaceful. And I really like just kind of like the sweet side we get of her here. We always, I feel like, have talked about Izzy's like treatment and how she like connects and gets really close to her patients. But in this scene, I feel like we really get that side of Meredith too, and kind of get that kind of like connection or like better patient care in her like doctor side.
Yeah, well, that's Meredith. I mean, she's a mixture of all the interns. That's why she's so interesting. You see little bits of Izzy and George and Alex and Christina all in this one single character, and there's so many layers. There's so much to explore. That's why Meredith is so interesting.
Mm-hmm. Okay, also...
But anyway, Holden's eyes open, and it's scary as shit.
Yeah, it's creepy. Okay, so I asked this question because... So I watched this episode on Netflix, right? And it didn't have the intro. So, did it have the intro for your episode? Or are they just, like, randomly, like, we'll put it in this episode, we won't put it in this one?
You know what? I've seen this episode so many times that I literally just watched the Netflix version, and I just remembered the extended scenes, because when I read the dialogue, I can literally see it in my head, so there's no point in watching. Like, there's no point in me digging my DVDs out, you know? So, yeah. I don't know. But there's no freaking intro. Just, please, Grey's Anatomy, my OCD is just, it's hurting.
So then we cut back over to Bailey, who has this patient who has 3rd-degree burns because he tried to deep fry a turkey.
If you really want to have fun in this episode, just listen to Bailey's patients' descriptions, because they never linger on them for that long. But when you really think about the day that Bailey had, if you like remember her patients, it's hilarious. It's like a little joke, a side joke that you have to really pay attention to pick up on.
Hold on, I'm looking up 3rd-degree burns because that is a pretty like serious...
Ooh, I don't know. Don't do images.
I wasn't going to.
Actually, you know what? Now I'm going to do images.
Ew. Because, like, how long would he have had to have his hand in the burning vat of oil?
Oh, it's not that... Oh, this might be 2nd degree. Oh, holy mother of Christ. Don't look up 3rd-degree burns. It's basically Anakin in the volcano. Holy shit. I hate you. From my point of view, the Jedi are evil. Well, you are lost.
You need to stop.
Sorry.
You're cut off.
Anakin, you're breaking my heart.
No. God. It says 3rd-degree burns are caused by the following, and the first one is a scalding liquid. So, okay.
That's more information than we ever needed. So Meredith said, my PVS case, he opened his eyes and he looked at me. And all the people in this OR start laughing in her face. They're like, LOL, can you believe this dumb bitch? And Meredith is like, Meredith, holy crap, don't laugh in Meredith's face because she will give you cement shoes and she will throw you in the Elliott Bay.
Yeah. And then Bailey's just like, he wasn't looking at you. And Meredith was like, he was.
Look at me. So anyway, I want to do a little bit of a character analysis of the patient Holden McKee before we go any further. First of all, I looked up the last name McKee just on a whim. I don't know why. And I was like, what's the meaning of the last name McKee? The meaning is fire. And he's a firefighter. And I was like, God damn, Grey's Anatomy writers, that is not there by mistake. Mm-hmm. That's genius. So I don't know why I looked that up. I'm so glad I did. So anyway, there's a few takes you can get from Holden. I think the most obvious one is that he symbolizes Meredith. That's pretty obvious reading that you can get from this episode. But he also touches on other themes in Meredith's life. He could represent Ellis and how she's been, quote, sleeping this whole time. And Meredith is imagining how traumatizing it would be for Ellis if she were to ever wake up and realize what happened. She would have a pretty similar reaction to Holden, actually probably much worse. And I also think, in a way, Holden could represent Derek. Because there's the line, he wasn't looking at you, and that really stuck out to me. And made me question, in that kind of metaphor, Addison could be represented by this coma that's keeping Derek asleep. And Meredith would be the ex-wife, the original wife, because she was forced to move on past Derek, even though she didn't want to.
Mm-hmm.
And later in the episode, the husband goes, it took her a really long time to move on. I don't know. I think that just really struck me as a possibility.
Yeah. I don't know. That's interesting.
How do you read it?
I never really even thought about the Ellis or Derek thing. I just 100% read it as Meredith and kind of the family, like his wife, the ex-wife, and his son being more kind of like Derek and how like they moved on from her in that kind of sense.
I think one of the most interesting readings, though, is Holden being Derek, because there's a lot of Snow White kind of vibes you can get from it, which I'll talk about a little bit later.
Mm-hmm. All right, so then we cut back over to Meredith's house, where Burke and Christina have arrived for Thanksgiving. Yes. And for once, Burke is not wearing 100 Shades of Beige.
50 Shades of Beige. Christina, my tastes are very singular. Come to my bedroom.
And then she's basically like giving him rules. She's like, don't mention Shepard or Montgomery Shepard or the fact that Shepard is with Montgomery Shepard.
Yeah.
Or anything having to do with syphilis.
And then Burke says this line. I've been in social situations before. I feel like the writers put that line in just for us, even though it was written years before we started this podcast.
He says lines like that like a couple times in the episode, like, I know how to interact with people, Christina. And I'm like, do you though? Is this for us because we make fun of you, Burke? Even though we love you.
It's not in the text. Evidence that he knows how to interact is not in the text.
Anyway.
There's two assholes on the podcast that won't stop making fun of him.
And then I love Izzy like answers the door and starts yelling at Christina, and then she sees Burke and she's just like, oh, hi.
What was I supposed to do? Blow off my boyfriend for Thanksgiving? And then pause. I tried to. He wouldn't blow. He's like something sticky that won't blow off.
Which I want to know how she tried.
And Burke is like, that really offended me.
And then I just love...
People who are shocked when I show up uninvited to their homes call me Preston.
And Christina, nobody calls you Preston.
You don't call me Preston.
Can we start calling him Preston? And then Preston. No, I can't.
I can't. I feel like I can't do the voice if it's Preston. Like, the Preston voice or the Burke voice.
No.
Yeah, no, it's Burke.
And then Izzy gets a phone out of her pocket. And she's like, hey, Alex, like, it's me.
You know, your super hot girlfriend that you're ditching right now for no reason. It's like, just tell her, Alex. Or move on because she's amazing and you suck.
Also, Alex is late again. More evidence of his double life?
I swear to God, Alex has a double life. I would not be surprised if he ended up having a double life.
Questionable. And then Burke, is something burning? Izzy, oh God, yes. So good.
Cut back to the hospital. So Derek is like, hey, Chief. The Chief, I'm on my way home. Yeah, me too. Was supposed to meet Addison 20 minutes ago. Which means it's noon, right?
Yeah.
Because that's when Addison made the reservation or whatever, so it's almost noon. It took Meredith this long to getting around to get a neuroconsult. Bailey's like, get a neuroconsult, and Meredith has probably just been, like, pacing around in, like, a fugue state, like, thinking about murdering people. How did it take her this long?
Googling
She's
other
like,
neuro doctors that she could possibly call instead.
I love this, like, it's like this super intense scene where Meredith is like, Dr. Shepard, you're leaving, and they have, like, this amazing eye contact, and then the Chief goes, I'm also going home. And Derek's like, then go home. And the Chief, this is the best Chief line ever. Of the entire show, this is the number one. Everything else is below it. The chief goes, Adele's sister's in town. I hate that woman. The way James Pickens Jr. delivers that line is just priceless.
I hate that woman. And then Derek, the OR board needs to be checked one more time.
It does, doesn't it? Excuse me. I hate that woman.
Oh, I love the chief.
And
then Derek tries to make this about them. He's like, I didn't think you'd be here today, Meredith. And she's like, yeah, I need a neuro consult.
Let's see. Oh, yeah, and she's just like, he was looking at me. He wasn't looking at you. He was. Look at me.
And then he I love the little pause. And then he just turns around and he's like, he was looking at you.
He doesn't say it like that, though.
He was looking at you?
I know that in the script there's a question mark, but he doesn't say it like that. He starts to walk away because he's like, no, I gotta go meet Addison. I'm late.
I feel like there is a little bit of a question.
He starts to walk away, and then he pauses. We get to see his face, and Meredith doesn't. He turns around and he goes, he was looking at you. Like that.
I thought he turned up a little bit. He was looking at you? I don't know. I guess I need to rewatch it. So here's the real question. Does he want to stay because the case, this case, Holden, is with Meredith? Or is he saying to avoid Addison?
I was kind of thinking they're one and the same a little bit. Because that was his choice a few episodes ago, Meredith or Addison. And I feel like he wants to avoid Addison, but I think he also, seriously really misses Meredith. Even though he knows that he shouldn't. He does.
Because, my question was, if Meredith hadn't come up with him to this case, do you think he actually would have gone to meet Addison?
Yes.
Okay.
I actually do. I think it would have been an emotional struggle with him and his man pain, but I think that he would have.
On his bridge of man pain.
Yeah, he probably would have gone and spent a few hours maybe sitting on that bridge, just, crying, and then he would have eventually done it.
Mm-hmm.
The bridge of man pain.
Man brain.
I feel like we need a more creative name. And we have another extended scene to talk about.
Woo.
This is the first time that Derek and Meredith have actually talked about Addison. And it starts in this episode that we start realizing that they are two intellectuals that actually have conversations with each other. And I really like that because it's like they almost did it backwards, you know? They slept with each other the first night that they met, so they didn't really know each other. And now it's almost like they're falling in love backwards in a way, where it's like they're falling in love after they've
doing
already
things in the wrong order.
Yeah, after they already reached that level of intimacy, and then the Addison thing makes it more complicated. But yeah, so anyway, this is a really good scene. And I'm really upset that they cut it. So it's Meredith and Derek walking down a hallway towards Holden's room. And Derek goes, so, how are you? Meredith, I'm fine. How are you? Derek, fine. And then Meredith goes, good. And then there's a pause, and she just kind of looks at them. They're still walking. And she goes, me and you in this weird limbo. This is going to go on forever, isn't it? And Derek goes, I hope not, but I think so. Yeah, me too. Derek, yeah. And then they just Derek kind of puts an arm out and stops her. And they kind of look at each other for a minute, and they hold this really intense eye contact where it seems like they're saying a lot to each other, but not saying anything. And then Meredith goes, I moved Holden to a room on 4, so... And Derek, you lead, I'll follow. And that's the whole scene. Mm-hmm. But that look that he gives her, it's really heavy, and it's like, It's like he really, really wants to say something. He just doesn't know what to say, you know?
Yeah. All right, so then we come back to the forest with the O'Malleys, and they're all completely, in camo, they got their, guns and coolers and all this stuff. And his brothers are, picking cars, which is just weird.
Cut back to Meredith's kitchen, where Izzy's on the phone again trying to get her asshole of a boyfriend to pick up. And Burke is like, what is that? So Izzy's just burning everything. She apparently sucks at cooking. And Burke goes, you've never made a Thanksgiving dinner before. Christina, you can't cook? Izzy? Well, I'm a baker. I bake. but I've seen my grandmother cook a million times.
Okay, that's it. If there's no food, I'm going home.
Christina, I've got this. What are you using as a reference text? And, oh my god.
And then we get this whole scene of the two of them cooking together. And it's literally like a reenactment of like surgery. He's like, all right, I need all of this stuff. And she's like, I got this. And then he like garlic and holds out his hand. And she like puts it in and she's like, garlic. And you're literally like, oh my god, these people are about to perform surgery on this dead bird.
Yeah. And Izzy just smiling excitedly, and then she like looks back at Christina like, isn't this great? And then Christina goes, I'm gonna need liquor. Lots and lots of liquor. Oh my god. How many... I have so many scenes just from this one episode that went of my best of Izzy moments, like best funny moments. Mm-hmm. Oh my god. My video that I made.
Oh my gosh.
So then we get a scene, which this is the number one scene that makes me think that Holden could represent Derek, because Holden starts tracking Meredith's voice, mm-hmm. which is a really important detail, that it's Meredith's voice that allows the doctors to realize that they can wake him up from his sleep. And then I started thinking, like, ooh, that's kind of like a Snow White Prince Charming parallel, you know? Mm-hmm. Which is a couple notorious for being the truest of true love, fate and all that, like Romeo and Juliet from last week. So the show is, despite your opinions on Romeo and Juliet, the show is insinuating subtly that Meredith and Derek are fated to be together. And the audience picks up on that. They get that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Derek goes, he's not PVS. He's minimally conscious. Anesthesia? ?
Interesting.
And Meredith, he's been frozen, sleeping for 16 years, and they missed it. That sucks. It's like, thanks thanks for your support,
Thanks,
Meredith.
But I like this. And he's like, there's one thing to be thankful for. What? We might be able to wake him up.
We might be able to wake up Derek from his Addison coma.
Yeah. Alright, so then we cut back to Christina and George on the phone together. And the song playing here is new song from Me to You in parentheses by Dressy Bessie.
Which, I think this episode might take the cake for weirdest
artist name
ever.
Yeah, no, this is fantastic.
We got Fanny Pack and Dressy Bessie. Mm.
Yeah. And I love Christina. Where does Meredith keep the booze? George, I don't think she has any. Christina, how's that possible? She's a wasp. Liquor is like oxygen to a wasp. George, which is why we're out of liquor.
How am I supposed to get through the holidays without liquor, George? Just come and get me. Christy, hello? Selfish.
That's my favorite. She's just like, oh, George, you're useless. And he's like, no, come help me. And she's like, I'm done with you. Ugh.
Yeah. Grey's Anatomy is so notorious for having their characters be only interested in helping themselves throughout an entire scene.
Hashtag Christina.
I love it, though, so much. Oh, God.
Really her.
So then we kind of, while the song is still playing, we cut over to Addison, who's sitting at Pier 66, guys, with a picnic basket. A massive picnic basket. Like, what were they going to do? Sit outside in late November?
Yeah. Yeah.
I guess so. I mean, Addison has a thing for Pier 66, am I right? And she's leaving a voice call for Derek. Derek, it's me. Where are you? Or she goes, where are you? And then cut immediately to Meredith and Derek standing on top of the stairs looking down at their kingdom.
Everything
this is such an
ours.
important scene, though. Derek goes, which one do you think she is? And Meredith, just looking utterly destroyed, looks around. Holden's wife? Yeah. And then she just spots it's her.
Yeah.
Because she looks just as demolished as I do, is the subtext.
Mm-hmm.
And Derek, how do you know?
Yeah, which she doesn't answer yet.
That will be important.
So basically, then we cut back over to Holden's patient room. And we have his ex-wife now, because she is remarried, her new husband, and Holden and her son.
So, yeah, Cheryl's just like, I just got remarried. We're having a baby in December. Kobe turns 17 on Thursday. TGIT, yo.
Which, like, her first son is 17, and she's having another child. Her children are going to be 17 years apart.
I feel like the second child was an oopsie. Let's think. I would say that this next extended scene is probably in my top 15 Meredith and Derek scenes of all time, and I forgot that it was an extended scene. And honestly, it's kind of devastating that most people have never seen this scene, because if you don't have the DVD, you would have never seen this scene, and it is so good. Ellen and Patrick do some really good work in this scene. They're on top of a building, right? Incorrect. I spent 45 minutes trying to find where they shot this scene, and I freaking found it. I am so proud of myself. So I looked at, like, Google Images and stuff, looking for where they filmed this. And so if you go to Seattle, near the Space Needle, there's this helicopter pad. And that's where they film all the helicopter shots, is actually on site in Seattle. And if you go around the side, if you look around the side of this glass building, there are 3 balconies that are kind of in like a staircase, like positioning down the side of it, and they filmed it on one of those balconies. And it took me so long to find that, but I found it. And so if you want to go to Seattle, find, I think it's like a TV station or something. I don't remember what TV station. And there's a helicopter pad on the top. Go around to the side. Oh, it looks like TV4. I'm looking at the building right now. Go around to the side, and there are 3 balconies, and they filmed it on one of those balconies. So let me get into the scene now. So they're outside on one of these balconies, not on a rooftop. And Derek goes, we did the right thing. Medically, Holden's outpatient, and we treated him. Meredith, I'm sure he'll thank us later. Which, deadpan sass, yes. And then Derek goes, Meredith goes, did you see that kid's face? Holden is a complete stranger to him. Derek, cases like this are... Meredith, it's not cases like this. It's this one case. You don't get it. You have a life, you go to sleep, you wake up and that life doesn't exist anymore? That man has no one. Everyone's moved on, except for him. It's not an easy thing. And they just kind of like... Derek just kind of looks at her for a minute, and then he goes, I'm sorry. And he places a hand on her arm, and she kind of looks down at that, and she goes, I know. And that's the whole scene. And it's so good. I love that scene so much. And the way that Derek touches her arm here, I understand how some people could get angry about it, but it's like, Meredith still wants him and still wants contact with him. And Derek is also just yearning for contact with her, and I think that's why he does it. Mm-hmm. And she doesn't pull away. Even though they both know that this is borderline inappropriate, and this is only going to make them hurt more, they're still dying for contact with one another.
Yeah.
That's what's so tragic. I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Do you think that we can relate the way that Meredith is reacting to the Addison bombshell to the Kubler-Ross grief cycle? Because I was thinking about it.
Because you already did.
I know, but do you think it's a stretch, or do you think I'm onto something here?
I mean, I don't really know much about it, but...
You don't know the 5 stages of grief?
I mean, I've, heard of it, but I don't know, a ton about it.
So it goes denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. And so, honestly, I think that we could map this with Meredith. And now, granted, I picked some episodes, but they're not set in stone. I just said that she probably was in the denial/shock phase from the season 1 finale to about season 2, episode 4. And then she is kind of going through the anger phase, which is frustration, irritation, anxiety in episode 7.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, when she was really pissed.
Mm-hmm.
And then the bargaining, which is struggling to find meaning, reaching out to others, telling one story, it's kind of like where we are now, I feel like. Episode 8, episode 9, she's starting to not be so angry. And I think the depression stage is very close, which is overwhelmed helplessness, hostility, flight. And I'm thinking, yeah, we see a lot of that in around season 2, episode 10 through episode 22. And then we don't get to the acceptance stage, which is exploring new options, a new plan in place, moving on, until about season 2, episode 23 through the season 2 finale. So I just thought that was interesting, that I feel like you could map.
It's kind of cool. I feel like that just helps make it more realistic. So then we cut back over to Meredith's house, and Joe has arrived with his boyfriend.
Which, two things. First of all, how genius is it that, one, they invited their bartender to Thanksgiving?
Joe's their BFF.
Well, that's my point. Like, what kind of place do you have to be in your life that your best friend is your bartender?
He's a good bartender.
Okay, whatever. And secondly, I love the fact that he's a gay bartender. I'm sorry, I love it so much. Ugh, it's so great.
And then I love, he's like, hey, this is my boyfriend, Walter. And Christina, whatever.
Please tell me you brought liquor. I brought pie, pumpkin. You're a bartender. Did you bring scalpels?
Can you imagine if Izzy and Burke start carving the turkey with a scalpel?
With Burke? Yes, I can imagine that.
They're like at the table and he just goes, scalpel. And she's like places it in his hand. Here you go, Dr. Burke. Here you go, Preston.
I told you to call me Preston. Yeah, exactly. But the fact that Joe is already made such good friends with all these interns is super important, because as a viewer, you realize that Joe has been around for a long time because he made friends with Bailey, you know? And so he's been around and he's interacted with this hospital staff. And yet these are the people that he is friends with, which means there's something special about them. And that makes the viewer feel like, yeah, there's something special about this group, that this guy who's interacted with countless hospital workers decides to make friends with this group, you know?
Yeah, it's interesting. All right, so then we get back to the O'Malley's in the forest. George is kind of explaining, or at least trying to explain, what he does to his brothers.
Yeah, and obviously you've seen the episode. And at the line when Jerry goes, so you don't actually cut anybody open, I mean by yourself, that's when there's a little extended version where George goes, no. And then Jerry goes, do you hand the surgeon stuff that he needs? Scalpels? And George just kind of laughs and he goes, that's the scrub nurse. And then Mr. O'Malley, Georgie's is the thing with the gas that puts the patient to sleep. And then George goes, no, Dad, that's the anesthesiologist. And then Ronnie, well, what? Do you, take the patient to surgery? And then George goes, orderly? No, the point of being an intern is that you're learning. And that's where it picks up again. So it's just a little bit of dialogue, which is, again, another example of how they didn't have, specific whole scenes that they cut out. You can tell that they had this idea for this episode and then realized that they needed to cut out little parts of it.
Yeah. I feel like this just really shows how different George and his family are, which we really get later. But, he's trying to explain to his brothers, what interns are doing. They're like, no, you just stand there and don't do anything. And he's like, no, I'm learning. And they're like, no, you're not doing anything. And so you really kind of start to see that, divide between George and the rest of his family.
Yeah. So the song Too Hard by Mark McAdam is playing now.
Name.
And we're going to do...
He has a normal name.
Yeah, I know, finally. Thanks, Mark. So we're cutting over to Meredith sitting on the ground in Holden's room. And for some reason, I love the concept of just an intern sitting on the ground doing charts. It fascinates me. It just seems so real. Like something I would do if I was an intern. Sit on the ground and do some work. Mm-hmm. We're going to do some dialogue because this is a great scene.
Okay. Who do you want to be?
I honestly don't care.
I'll be Alex.
I was about to say I'll be Meredith, so perfect.
What are you doing here?
Waiting for my patient to wake up.
Why aren't you at the Thanksgiving?
Why aren't you at the Thanksgiving? What?
I tell you something, you tell me something.
Okay. I feel like one of those people who's so freaking miserable they can't be around normal people. Like I'll infect the happy people. Like I'm some miserable, diseased, dirty ex-mistress. Your turn.
I failed the medical boards. If I tell Izzy, she'll be nice about it and all supportive and optimistic. She might as well rip my nads off and turn them into earrings.
Alex, you should go to Thanksgiving. I mean, don't tell her if you don't want to, but you should go. Otherwise, you're just me.
A miserable, diseased, dirty ex-mistress? It's hot. It's really hot. I feel better already.
See? And it's so cute.
It's such... And then he, like, gives her this little, like, reassuring, like, pat on the head. And it's so cute in, like, this little, like, brotherly way. Like, oh.
But do you think people watching this back in 2005 were like, whoa, is Alex and Meredith getting together?
I don't know. See, to me, this just feels like another one of those, like, Alex Meredith scenes where they're just very comfortable being themselves around each other.
Mm-hmm. I don't know, though,
Yeah,
honestly.
that's true.
Because...
I mean, I know when I first watched this, like, without seeing... Like, my first time through, I didn't think that they were going to be a couple.
Okay.
So, but...
I can't remember. I was 9.
Mm.
It was a while ago. Then Holden wakes up, and of course Meredith is in the room because continue the parallel.
Mm. And it's so cute, and she just walks up to him and, like, grabs his hand, and he's like, yes, someone's here.
Yeah, and so, commercial, and we cut back, and Holden is asking how long he's been out, and then Derek says, could you excuse us, please? Oh, please. And Holden wants Meredith to tell him, you know. And I like this line, I'm only an intern. I've never really done this before. And he goes, me neither. Their interactions, it seems like they're both staring at each other in this really intense way, and Derek is like this awkward third wheel.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, then Derek, no anesthesia.
Which, again, Meredith and Derek are meant for each other because they always turn the conversations back to themselves. Derek is just like, oh, we're not talking about me right now, so we gotta fix that.
No anesthesia? Yeah.
I literally need to be knocked out in order to have sex with my wife.
What a great husband.
Cut back to the best scene of this whole episode. Maybe not, but it's
one of them.
It's amazing. Oh, yeah. Dance by the OAOTs
is playing.
Which is, as you may recall, the same song that played during George's surgery with Burke in Season 1, Episode 1.
Well, in this whole...
During his first solo surgery.
And this whole scene is very reminiscent of that.
It's not even just reminiscent. They literally directly took the dialogue and changed it slightly so that it related to the turkey instead of a appendectomy.
Yeah. Which, first off, so they cut her to her, like, chopping celery. She is cutting massive pieces of celery. I was like, good Lord, Izzy, what the hell are you putting those in?
I don't know. Apparently, Becca is the cooking police.
Okay, she had, like, 2 huge pieces of celery on her board, and I was like, girl, where are you gonna put those in? Even Burke told her to cut in finer pieces.
Exactly. Finer pieces. And then he goes, now what should you be concerned about, Izzy? And then Burke goes, the turkey, Stevens, I expect you to know that.
And she's like, right. And then I love, like, they're having this whole scene, and you just cut over to Joe. $10 says she dries out the turkey, Walter. 20 says she pulls it off, Christina. 75 says I don't care.
Yeah, which again is reminiscent of like the first scene where Meredith says 50 says he pulls the whole thing off. Uh-huh. So, okay, Stevens, let's see what you can do. She puts the meat thermometer in. All right, more pressure. Turkey's a tough shell, dig in. Which he said human skin is a tough shell, dig in to George. And then Izzy, I'm in. And then Joe, damn, she got it in. Told you she's gonna pull it off. And that she's gonna pull it off is Meredith's line from season 1, episode 1.
Good, not bad. Now all you have to do is get the thermometer deep enough to get a temp, but be careful not to. Oh,
you hit the bone. Pan is filling with juice. You're losing moisture. What do you do? And then Izzy's like, and then Burke, think. And
he's like, think,
Christina's
woman,
like,
think.
that's it. I'm out of here. Oh my gosh. And then Burke has to run after Christina. Hey, what's the problem? You're operating on a turkey and you're making friends with my friends. And then Burke goes, you told me to be nice. The way he says it is so funny. I didn't think I could love Burke more, but I can. You told me to be nice. He's like, I don't know how to be nice.
My favorite is Christina's like, give me the keys. I'm going to go get some liquor. And everyone is just like, we know exactly where you're going, Christina.
Except nobody does. Only the audience does.
Okay, I know exactly where she's going.
Christina from the kitchen. Dr. Burke!
No, that's Izzy.
And then Burke, suction! Use the baster as suction! Oh my god. I cannot think of any better way to introduce Burke into this dinner party than him making friends with all of Christina's friends. And Burke is becoming better friends with all of her friends than she is, and it's just pure brilliance.
Yeah. So then we cut back to the forest, where they finally spot a turkey. Good Lord.
And George shoots it.
Yeah. So then we cut over to Holden getting an MRI. So then we get to an extended part where it's just 2 lines really. It's just him really reminiscing what happened.
Yeah. Just for all you type A people out there, it's right after Meredith says, if you're ready, to Holden. It cuts back to Holden in the extended episode, and it goes, when I went down into that fire, we were going on vacation the next day, taking the baby to see my mom. She was so excited. I tried to call my mom today, but, she's dead now. My mom's been dead for 8 years. And then he goes, I'm ready. And Meredith is like, okay.
Mm-hmm.
My God, I can't imagine that happening to me.
Yeah. I can't even just imagine waking up out of a coma after 16 years. Just think of yourself 16 years ago and you know what I mean? It's just insane to think about.
I was 4.
Yeah, one day being 5 and then waking up the next day and you're 21. What?
I mean, granted, that is a time of immense change, but...
still. Going into a coma at, 30 and then waking up at 46? That's insane.
Yeah, I feel like the thing that would be the most shocking would be how society has changed while you were out.
Yeah, thinking about in his time, you go from 89 to 05. The technology that's changed, everything's in the world. He missed 9/11.
Yeah.
So much stuff has changed. In society, let alone his own family. His wife moved on, his mom's dead, that kind of thing.
But even just the tiny little things, not even just the big events in society, but the tiny little ways that people interact. Mm-hmm. Or, the change in, clothing. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? If you went to sleep in the 50s and woke up in, the 70s or, something like that, can you imagine how different it would be?
Yeah. Or, slang
you'd feel like an alien.
Who's popular and what, all that
yeah.
stuff. Yeah.
You'd have to relearn everything.
Yeah. It'd be crazy.
So Holden doesn't know what to do, and he goes, what do I do? And then to Meredith, what would you do? Which is important. And Meredith goes, I can't answer this for you.
It's just such an interesting thing, what would you do? You know what I mean? Would you go through this operation or not?
I think I would definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Because at that point, there's nothing to lose. Meredith says it later, but at that point, everybody who even could help him make that decision has moved on,
Yeah. So then we go back to the surgical room that is Meredith's kitchen.
Mm-hmm. Dr. Burke, how did you learn to cook like this?
My mother owns a restaurant in Alabama.
It's a real hoppin' joint after a long day of duck hunting. Izzy, seriously? Burke, seriously? Which I think that was the first time we heard Burke say seriously. I think so.
And then I like this little part where as he goes, you know, like she is talking about Christina, doesn't ask a lot of personal questions. She's kind of hard to get to know. And then Burke is like, yeah, she is. Grove didn't show. Is he? No, he didn't. Burke, is that okay? Is he? No, it's not. I don't know. I love that little interaction between the two of them.
Mm-hmm. That shows that Burke, it's like in the hospital, he's such a commanding figure in some ways. But honestly, it's funny, but I feel like Burke is the most easy to talk to of all the attendings. And easy to get to know.
Oh, yeah. And I almost get a little bit in this scene of, like, him being as kind of, like, a little, like, fatherly figure to them. You know what I mean?
Maybe a little bit, yeah.
A little bit, like, in this scene.
I see it as more friends.
Okay.
Oh, my God. And then we go back to Christina in the hospital looking for charts. I am so sad that you did not see this scene, Becca, because it is everything. Yeah, I know. I had to record it and send it to you because it is the funniest thing ever. It is Addison and Christina's best scene in this show. And I'm so upset that it's not in the... Oh, gosh. This episode was so good. Okay. So, Addison comes off the elevator, and she sees Christina, and she goes, Dr. Yang. And Christina's like, yes. And Addison, have you seen my husband? No, I have not. Do you know where he is? No, I do not. He was supposed to meet me hours ago. And then she does a series of sighs, like deep sighs, like really digging deep. She's like... And the camera is just tracking around them while Christina is awkwardly staring up at Addison, who's just sighing in front of her. Oh my God. And Christina goes, I'm not here. And Addison, neither am I. This scene is so good. This scene is everything that I want in life. Oh,
so good. That was honestly like reading it and then seeing it are two like different things. Like if you haven't seen the scene, try to find it.
It's on YouTube. Yeah, you can
find it. It's a good scene. So then she gets a patient who swallowed a wishbone.
This man is huge. This man is the size of a refrigerator.
He's also, like, he's, like, oh, like, obviously, like, choking and, like, having problems. And she just goes, excellent. Maybe you ruptured your esophagus, huh? That means surgery. And you're, like, I feel like this guy is probably just like, what? Like, this woman is crazy.
Like, I know I've been waiting here for a long time, but can I have a different doctor who's not trying to kill me?
Like...
So then they have to blood George, which is really weird on so many levels. It's also really unstable. Do you think Meredith bloods herself when she murders people?
That's just gross. And then Ronnie shoots their dad in the butt.
You shot Dad in the ass. Are you happy now? Commercial.
And then it just cuts to George, like, in a trauma room working on his dad's butt. And you're like, oh, God. This has to be the highlight of George's career.
And I'm just going to read this kind of long speech by George. Jerry, first you say the GTO. Ronnie counters with the Bel Air, which never fails to make Dad say the GT500, the Cobra, the Chieftain. Then somebody names a German car, which invariably starts the American versus foreign debate that usually ends when one of you brings up the DeVille. And that always, always leads to an unbelievably long discussion on the merits of the 57 Thunderbird. So why don't I just jump to the end now and name the Thunderbird so for once in our lives we can stop picking cars? And my name is George.
And he just storms out. So then we cut back over to Holden's room.
Yeah, and the kid's back, but kind of not back. And he's just like, I didn't see it. Our eyes aren't the same. I was like, ugh. You know what you need to do? You need to go take a trip with Derek to the Man Pain Bridge. And you just need to stand there for a little bit.
And get all your man pain out on the Man Pain Bridge. We need a better name for it. I'll think of something.
Yeah, we will. So Holden decides to have the surgery.
Yeah. And I kind of like what he says.
That's pretty much it.
Like, he said she's happy that this guy, Hal, is really good for her. She loves him. So I've decided to go ahead with the surgery. They've moved on. I should too. I don't know. And then he kind of goes, now get this thing out of my head and let me get on with my life. I don't know. I like that.
That line, when you just read it, it made me think, now get this thing out of my head so I can get on with my life. Get Derek out of my head so I can get on with my life.
Yeah. That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Izzy comes into the kitchen, and she's with Burke. And Burke asks her, why did you plan this big dinner if you didn't know how to cook? Izzy, I just like Thanksgiving, Dr. Burke.
Preston.
You just like Thanksgiving. We work 18 hours a day, 6 days a week, 50 weeks a year. We don't really have any time for our families. We don't have friends that aren't doctors, but we have this one day where we don't have to cut anyone open. One day where we get to be like everybody else. One day to be normal. A day where nobody lives and nobody dies on our watch. It's like a gift. So I just thought we should appreciate it. That's all. Gotta set the table.
Yeah, which is hilarious because literally everyone, except for her, has been at the hospital cutting people open at some point during this day.
Yeah. And then Burke kind of stares after her and nods slowly like he's really letting this sink in. And he's like, a day without surgery. Oh shit. I guess I'm starting next year.
So we get Serenade by Emiliana Torrini.
Which is the most Italian name I've ever heard in my entire life. Besides like Alfonso Gibberacci or something.
So we go back to Bailey's operating room, where she kind of lets it off the like little thing to and she like tells Christina that she's pregnant.
But I like the way she says it. She doesn't say I'm pregnant.
I'm pregnant.
Oh my god, what if Burke was pregnant?
He's the pregnant man from 207.
I don't know how this is biologically possible. And Bailey kind of goes, you and Dr. Burke? Christina, yeah. And then Bailey goes, he would have made a good father. Which is so touching. It really is. It's almost like Bailey's approving a little bit. Even though she's clearly not happy that
like
they're together.
In
but
her
she
Bailey
is
way.
kind of... Yes.
Yeah.
So then there's this little extended moment when Dr. Kent opens the door and he said, they said the Nazi was in here. And Bailey goes, he was, but he left. I think he went down to the pit. And Christina gives Bailey this pointed look and Bailey just is like, don't ask. And that's the whole extended part. So now we're going to cut over to Derek going into surgery and Meredith asks him, what would you have done if you were him? Would you have the surgery? And Derek says, you would have the surgery. Which, thanks for answering her question, Derek. And Meredith says, I would want the future. Or to be asleep again. One or the other. Nothing in between. Because that's where she's living right now. And Derek goes, honestly, I don't know what I'd want. And Meredith kind of... There's this kind of like coy look in her eyes that's also like hurt.
Yeah.
Where she goes, I know you don't. And it hurts so bad.
Yeah.
He's still not sure he wants to be with Addison, but it's not like he 100% wants to be with Meredith either, you know?
He doesn't know.
And that just kills Meredith because she knows what she wants. 100% knows what she wants.
Yeah.
And that's him.
Yeah. So then we cut back to George's dad. And they finally kind of have this conversation. Like, you know, George is like, no, I didn't have fun today. And his dad's like, oh, you hurt your brother's feelings. And he kind of says, they never treated me like one of them. Which then his dad goes, you know, Jerry's a dry cleaner. Ronnie works in a post office. I drive a truck. You're a surgeon. You're not one of us. I know it, and they know it. You make sure we know it. And then I love this little, like, thing that he gives. And he says, I'm not blaming you. It makes me proud that you're so smart. Like I did something right. It's just, we try. We try to include you, but you don't like the stuff that we like. And we don't know how to talk about the stuff that you want to talk about. You're not one of us. But damn it, we don't treat you like you're stupid. You treat us like we're stupid. And maybe we are, but we're your family. Give us an inch, Georgie. Every once in a while, pick a car. And you're like, ugh, I love his dad so much.
And the song Not Going Anywhere by Karen Ann?
Sure.
Whatever. And George is kind of put in his place a little bit by that, but then he goes, I saved a guy's life on an elevator last month. I performed open heart surgery on him right there. And Mr. O'Malley, by yourself? By myself. Just like a real doctor. And he goes, wow, that's something. That's really something.
Yeah. You can just tell, like, even though he doesn't say it in that line, his dad is just so proud of him and, like, proud of everything that George is becoming. Like, even though, like, his brothers are like, oh, you're not doing anything, you just stand there in surgery. Like, his dad is so proud of him. It, like, makes me so happy. Because I feel like up until this time, you've just kind of heard about bad or, like, really strange parents in this series. You know, you have Ellis, you have Alex, kind of weird parent situation. You kind of had Izzy being estranged from her mom and all this stuff. And I don't know. I like how, like, this family is just, like, it's so pure.
Well, it's also because George is kind of seen as the puppy that everyone kicks. But not in his family. In his family, he is the extremely smart one. And not gonna lie, that scene makes me cry every time. I cried last time I watched this.
So then we cut back over to Holden's surgery where we kind of see that we've lost him.
He dies.
Yeah. It's super sad.
And I like the way that they do it silently.
Yeah.
They just have the music playing. That's how they do it.
And they see his son, like, sitting there in the waiting room. And Derek is just kind of like, I'll take care of it. Like, that poor son. Like, first his dad wakes up after 16 years. And at first, he wasn't really sure about it. But, like, him being there in the waiting room was him being like, yeah, you know, like, this guy's my dad or whatever. And now he's going to get the news that he's dead. And, like, ugh. I can't even imagine.
Joe and Walter have to leave because Joe's got to go open up the bar. And so Burke and Izzy are the only two left. And Izzy kind of goes, you can leave too if you want. Burke, I'm not leaving the table until the hostess does. They're not coming, even so. Yeah. And then, I don't know, I kind of just like the fact that, like, Burke and Izzy almost had this dinner together. And zero romance here.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that when you watch the episode, you know that there's zero romance. But it's this weird friendship that you're like,
I like it.
Wow. This friendship really works. Yeah. And I really like it. It will come back later. There will be some glorious Burke and Izzy friendship scenes in season 3.
My favorite. So Christina and George come in and, like, they're both like, oh, awkward, we're not going to mention it. And George just whispers to Izzy, today I committed bird murder and was forced to touch my dad's ass. I get extra points for showing up at all.
And then Christina, I brought booze. It's like, you know that they were speeding home from the hospital. Christina's like, shit, my cover story was that I had to go get some booze. So she, like, detoured to the liquor store and bought some booze. And then Izzy stands up all pissed, and then she's like, let's just eat. Because she's decided to be grateful for what she does have. And, oh my god, dialogue. If I said that earlier Meredith and Derek scene was in my top 15, this is in my top 10.
Yeah. Do you want to be Derek or Meredith?
I want to be Meredith.
All right. You know, today in the waiting room, how did you know Cheryl was Holden's wife?
Waiting rooms are full of people hoping for good news. She was the only one who looked like she had completely given up.
Yeah.
Do you love her?
I don't know.
It's good that you're trying. You wouldn't be you if you weren't the kind of person who's trying to make it work.
You think so?
Yeah. Means I wasn't wrong about you.
Thanks.
Goodbye, Derek.
Bye, Meredith. Which, ugh. And the song Sad Eyes by Josh Ruse starts playing in the middle of that scene.
So, Grey's Anatomy dialogue gets stuck in my head the same way that normal people get songs stuck in their head. And This dialogue often gets stuck in my head. Just that line, the way Ellen Pompeo says, "Do you love her?" It's just, like, Meredith's guard is completely down, and she almost feels like she has nothing to lose here, you know? Mm-hmm. And so she has to ask. She's like, "Do you love this woman?" And he goes, "I don't know." And that just kills. That kills Meredith. But I also love the fact that Derek doesn't try to avoid it.
Or, like,
he
hide
tells
it.
her the truth. I get kind of Jane Eyre and Mr. Rochester vibes between these two. Did you read that book?
Mm-hmm.
But it's kind of like they are able to have conversations with each other that nobody else can really have. I like this because we see this superficial relationship between Meredith and Derek where it's like, oh, we're both really attractive people, let's just have sex, and oh, we're like flirting with each other. Like, remember in the beginning of season 1 where Derek was just flirting with Meredith and annoying us? Now it seems like they're talking on a more intimate and deep level, and it's just so much better.
Yeah. It's a good scene. I like it.
Also, what is so painfully ironic is that Meredith loves Derek because he's the kind of man that would stick around and try to make it work with Addison.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that's keeping Derek from her. Mm-hmm. It's such painful irony.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's supposed to be.
I know, but it's just so beautiful. Just like, she wouldn't love him as much as she does if he wasn't the kind of guy that would stay with his wife. Mm-hmm. If he was the kind of guy that would have chose Meredith, she wouldn't love him the way that she does. Ugh, it's just... I get the irony, but it's just so beautifully written and so painful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So then we cut back to Meredith standing on her porch, kind of looking inside at the
creepily staring in
at the Thanksgiving dinner. Alex walks up and he's like, "Oh, are you going inside?" And she's like, "No, you go ahead."
Izzy, my God, Alex. Izzy is in a really forgiving mood because you have been a jerk throughout this whole episode. Pick up the woman's phone call. The least you can do is pick up a phone call.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So then we cut back to the hospital with the chief standing in front of the OR board. He's still at this hospital. Good Lord.
I love this. Adele's already mad. I'm in trouble no matter what. And there's a Whipple going on in OR too. Go home right now.
And then he turns to her and she goes, This kind of
treatment is why they call you the Nazi.
And Dr. Kent is like standing there and he just stops and is like, "What?" And like turns around and looks at Bailey and she just goes, "Happy Thanksgiving."
And then the elevator doors shut and his face is like, "Oh shit, I've made a huge mistake."
Such a good...
Pow. Pow. Pow.
I love her.
And now the scene where Burke attempts to explain/understand the social situation he was in today. They're in the car, and he won't start the car. He just, like, puts on his seatbelt and leans back, and he goes, "I was nice." Christina, "Yeah, I noticed." And Burke goes, "You don't ask a lot of personal questions, and you're very hard to get to know." Christina, "Yes." And then Burke just like, my God, this is so weird. He's just like, "My mother owns a restaurant in Alabama. I scrubbed in on a foreign body removal this afternoon. A guy swallowed a wishbone whole." And then Burke just starts chuckling. He's like, "Ha ha ha, LOL."
He just like smiles and is like, "Yeah," and then like leaves, and you're like, "What?"
What just happened? Like, he just like wouldn't start the car, and he's just like, "I was nice." Like, I just so confused. I don't know.
"Here's your gold star."
Oh, Burke. It's brilliantly written because it's so awkward. So now Derek, in the pouring rain, he pulls up to a shit trailer in the woods where Addison is waiting on the porch, which, I didn't expect her to be there, honestly, because I didn't even think that she knew where he lived, but apparently she's learned a little bit about him.
She knows everything.
In this time. Yeah, that's true. She's Addison. And he's just taking a sweet time walking in the pouring rain like he's a model or something. And Addison goes, "You didn't show." And in the extended version, she adds, "So, I bought Chinese food and I waited. It was good. Now it's lukewarm and old, which makes it just like the food we used to have in medical school. And then that's the only extended part. And she goes, Derek, are you done? Hurting me back, I mean? Because I need to know. Because if not, I got a special order of thicker skin or something.
She's so cute and charming, even when she's upset.
And he goes, no anesthesia in sight, and leans in and, kisses her. And that begs the question, do you think Derek does this because he really, really wants to be with Addison? Or do you think he does it because Meredith told him earlier, you're the kind of guy that would do this? And because he wants to be that kind of guy for Meredith, that's why he does it.
I don't know. I feel like, in a way, Meredith saying that to him, caused him want to try more and, try to make things work, better than he already was. I don't think he's doing it because he, wants, because, that's the reason Meredith fell in love with him. But I feel like it's, her reminding him of, that's who you are, and that's, what makes you, such a good person. And that's, him being, okay, then I need to, try harder and, do this then.
Meredith makes him a better man. Also, first kiss on screen between Derek and Addison. How would you compare their chemistry to Meredith and Derek?
It's interesting because I feel like we don't really get the chemistry of Mer and Derek from their kiss scenes. It's more from the other scenes, you know what I mean? The scene last episode of them in the elevator, to me that was so much more chemistry than any of their kiss scenes or anything.
I feel like when Ellen and Patrick just stare at each other, that's when we get the most chemistry. Anyway, let's move on to Meredith not having chemistry with somebody. Actually, you know what? Scratch that. Meredith has chemistry with so many people. So she's in Joe's bar reading a book.
Which is weird.
At the bar. Yeah, which is weird. It's not the weirdest thing she'll do in this bar. That comes later. And some random guy's is this seat taken? And she kind of glances at the dude, looking at her next victim. And she glances up at Joe. And Meredith goes, do you work at the hospital? And the guy's no. And I'm why are you in this bar then? How did you even get into this bar? Yeah. I feel like you have to work in the hospital to drink here.
You have to show your ID.
Exactly. You have to swipe your ID. And Joe's who are you? Why are you here, you weirdo? And Meredith goes, you're not a brain surgeon or a doctor of any kind? And the guy goes, no. And Meredith goes, then this seat isn't taken. Do you want to buy me a drink? Actually, I do. Yeah. This poor man has no idea the hurricane of madness he just walked into.
I also really in between, right before she tells him that the seat isn't taken, she kind of looks up at at Joe, who smiles at her, and then she's then the seat isn't taken. She almost looks at him for approval, Joe, is this man gonna be okay?
Joe's her big brother.
This man won't hurt me, right, Joe? And he's you'll be good, girl.
Yeah, and Joe kind of looks back at Meredith this man is not going to hurt you. It's more likely that they're going to find this man's body defiled somewhere, unrecognizable.
Yeah.
Closing voiceover. Maybe we're not supposed to be happy. Maybe gratitude has nothing to do with joy. Maybe being grateful means recognizing what you have for what it is. Appreciating small victories. Admiring the struggle it takes simply to be human. Maybe we're thankful for the familiar things we know. And maybe we're thankful for the things we'll never know. At the end of the day, the fact that we have the courage to still be standing is reason enough to celebrate.
Yeah.
Seriously count dose 2.
You want to know what's really bad? We have the exact same patient rankings.
Our number 4 is Bailey's various patients, because they're hilarious, but ultimately they didn't do much.
Yeah.
Number 3 was Levi Johnson, the Wishbone Man.
Because again, he didn't really do much.
But he was awesome. Also, he supplied that scene between Christina and Addison, which is the best thing I've ever seen in my life. Number 2 was Mr. O'Malley, and honestly, that was kind of hard for me to rank, But ultimately, I think I ranked him number 2 because he wasn't really a patient for that long.
Well, and I think overall in this episode, like, even just talking about it, you know Holden is going to be the number 1.
Well, again, because the patient that parallels and is a metaphor for Meredith, I've noticed, tends to be number 1 on our patient rankings. Because Meredith is the freaking main character.
Yeah, so it just makes sense.
And she should be. Yeah, so Holden's number 1, obviously. There's so much there. So much.
There's not even, like argument for any of the others to, like, be number 1. Like, Holden is number 1, and then the rest are just there.
Meredith is the main character, and the rest are just there to serve her plot. See? I have a make one change. And it's a really, really cheap make one change. I wish all the extended stuff was in this episode.
Yeah.
And now they took it out because I know that they took it out because they didn't 100% need it. But if you watch it with the stuff in there, the episode storylines come across more clearly. The episode seems more fleshed out, and it's just an overall better episode. Mm-hmm. And I'm really glad that they decided to include this extended episode on the DVDs. So when you compare the two versions, you notice that, yes, this is a much better episode. Mm-hmm. Anything else from you?
I didn't have anything. I really like this episode.
Yeah, fantastic themed episode. I think this is my favorite holiday-themed episode of any show. I'm trying to think.
I think this is definitely my favorite holiday-themed Grey's episode.
Yeah. Well, it's either this one or episode 12, which is the Christmas episode. Nothing from the later seasons holiday-themed even comes close.
Yeah.
Yeah. So next week we're talking about Season 2, Episode 10, Much Too Much, written by Gabrielle Stanton and Harry Worksman Jr., which was the duo that wrote the Season 1 finale, and directed by Wendy Stanzler, who directed the Season 1 finale. So this is kind of the 1X09 group.
So what ball are we getting dropped on us this episode? Find out and see.
If you want to get in touch with us, we are on Twitter at... I'm at... Hazard_Emily. Becca's at Anderson_Becca. And our account for the overall podcast is at Grey's Uncut. Longer questions or comments can be sent to our Gmail, which is graysanatomyuncut@gmail.com. And that's it. That's all I got for you.
We'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening.
Bye.
Bye.